Hey, I'm Brent Hall, and today I'm going to be reviewing this guy, the Rode VideoMicro. So I'm going to do a couple different things with this, I think, than a lot of the other videos that I've been looking at. I originally bought this as a kind of a backup to go on one of my B or C cams and for B-roll audio and that sort of stuff. But I've been playing around with it, and I actually kind of like some of its other uses, so I may be using it for a little more. So I'm going to go over how it functions as a vlog microphone, because that's definitely going to be popular. I'm going to use it potentially to vlog on my actual DSLRs, but I also want to test how it vlogs with cell phones and how it works with cell phones. So I'm going to go over that kind of stuff. It's going to be a little more in depth as to the range of audio and features that this guy has and doesn't have, because there are a few differences. I'm going to compare it with this guy right here. So this is the Rode VideoMic Pro. So we'll compare it with that and we'll see how it does. I will probably also maybe throw in a lav mic comparison. We'll see, but I'll be using a lav mic out and about. So I'm in the studio right now, but let's go outside and start testing this guy and see how it does in the New Mexico wind and around traffic and anywhere you might use it on a daily basis, especially for vlogging and B-roll audio. So let's get to it. Ugly. So I don't want this to just be a review where I put the different mics on and then let you hear them and then pick which one sounds better, because I want to go a little more in depth into the audio differences, the quality differences, and the specification differences, what you're going to get, the differences between a $60 mic and a $200+ mic like the Rode Video Pro. So I think based on all the testing that I've done so far, the audio itself in favorable conditions, it's fairly close, but there are a few little differences, and there's definitely a few advantages that the Rode VideoMic Pro has over the Micro, and vice versa. So let's get into those. All right, so first let's talk a little bit about some of the benefits of the Micro versus some other things. First off, obviously, the best thing is that you don't need a battery. So it's all auxiliary powered. It's all powered through whatever device you're going to plug it into. That's fantastic. The next thing that's great about the VideoMicro is the windscreen that it comes with. It comes with a really beefy little windscreen, and I was actually quite surprised that not only is that included in the price for $60, I think it's really well made, and it does a very good job at cutting the wind. When you compare it to my Rode VideoMic Pro, not only did it not come with a windscreen, but it doesn't do that great of a job. I did buy I think the one that I bought is the Rode windscreen for the VideoMic Pro, and there are other third-party ones out there that I think would be better, but I haven't looked at those. But they both do their job. They both cut the wind, but I'm just really stoked that that was included in the price, and that's a huge selling point for me. Alright, so those are some of the pros that I like about the VideoMicro, and obviously size, travel size, being able to keep on anything, anywhere, in your pockets, in your bags, whatever. That's always very handy. So that's another reason I bought it. That way I can make sure that I'm never without a mic. Even if it's a backup mic, I will always have one now with that being there. So let's talk about now, I am recording this, by the way. What you're hearing is the VideoMicro. I'm going to switch between that and the VideoMic Pro and this lav that I have on, and I'll talk about that later. But let's talk about the differences between the VideoMic Pro. So the first difference, the best difference, obviously, is that the VideoMic Pro has the option for the plus 20 decibels. All right, so why do you need plus 20 decibels? Well, this is built for largely dealing with DSLR cameras, and DSLR cameras are notorious for having horrible preamps inside their camera. And so what happens is, when you plug a mic into the DSLR, if you have to use the camera's preamps to turn up the volume inside the camera, that's going to create a lot of noise. I've also heard a lot of people say that they get hiss from their Rode VideoMicro. That's probably where the hiss is coming from, because there are no settings on the VideoMicro for being able to control the decibel level. You have to do all of that in camera. And so what I've found is that I have to adjust the camera's audio level when I have the VideoMicro on to a higher level than when I have the VideoMic Pro, because the VideoMic Pro, I can switch it to that plus 20 decibels, and then I can drastically reduce the audio input level on the camera's preamps. That makes a big difference in the quality. That's not to say that you can't fix it though, because I have been experimenting with this, and that's a very easy fix in programs like Premiere Pro or Audition. Their adaptive noise reduction effect can be applied very easily. It's one click and it does a great job. And if you need to tweak it, of course, I am going to go into a little bit about EQ and what I do with my audio workflow in post. So that will help you understand what the mics sound like natively, but also how far you can push them to get good quality audio out of them in bad scenarios. Okay, so another maybe slight drawback that I've discovered with the VideoMicro when compared to the VideoMic Pro is with other Rode microphones that I've used, all the higher end stuff, I've noticed that it's been a little more bassy, and sometimes that's a little artificial, sometimes a little too much, but the VideoMicro definitely does not have that problem. It's not bassy, it sounds natural, but I think that I probably will add a little bit of low end on the EQ just to kind of help bring up my voice a little bit. And also possibly when in B-roll, stuff like that, I think it's a little bit hollow, just a little bit. It doesn't sound tinny or echoey or anything like that, but it's just a little underneath what the VideoMic Pro is capable of. All right, so let's switch it up. Now all of my audio is coming from the Rode VideoMic Pro, and this is the sound that we're getting right out of the box. All right, so I'm gonna put these mics through a few different tests. I'm gonna do some B-roll footage and see how they capture ambient sound, and I'm going to test out how they sound with acoustics. So I'm gonna attempt to play a little guitar and see how that sounds, to see if you could get away with using them for outdoor concerts, or recording your friends or whatever. Alright, so that wraps up the portion where I pretend to be a musician. Okay, so we're back on the Rode VideoMicro, and another thing that I want to talk about that's going to be really beneficial for the VideoMicro in terms of situations is cell phone videography, or vlogging with your cell phone. So I'm going to run through a couple of tests and see how this does. So if you're going to be doing cell phone videography or vlogging with your cell phone or whatever, to use the Rode VideoMicro or any other Rode mics or whatever, you're going to need this. This is their SC7 cable. They also have just a patch adapter that can go from any of their other mics. So you can either use the adapter or this cable. And what this cable is, you'll notice this one has a gray tip here. This is a TRS, which is the 2 pins here, the 2 pins here, and those are what go into most DSLRs and recording devices. However, cell phones use a TRRS, so there are 3 little black lines on this one, and that's the connection difference. So that's going to allow you to plug this into your phone, and it's going to allow your phone to recognize it as a microphone and not something else. So the next thing, let's throw the cell phone on there and see how it does with the cell phone. And I'll try to get the visuals right, but let's focus on the audio here. So switch to the cell phone now. All right, so now we're on the phone, and I'm using the Samsung Galaxy Note 8, and I've got the VideoMicro plugged into it with the patch cable. So the downside to this is that I have zero control over the audio whatsoever. I have no idea if I'm peaking or anything like that because I haven't found any audio monitoring in the video mode. So that's the downside. So I'm just gonna have to trust the microphone. I've got it about 3 feet away from me. So we're gonna see how this does for a vlogging setting. It's a bit breezy out here, but it's not super windy, and there is a ton of background noise. There's birds and cars and stuff driving around. So we're gonna see, there goes one. So we're gonna see how this does, and this is gonna be a big factor for me. So I do a lot of vlogs, and if I'm using one of my bigger cameras or both of my bigger cameras or all that stuff, then I can't be vlogging with them. So this may or may not be a viable option for me as well. So like I said, this is all automatic. I have no control over the audio whatsoever with the Rode Micro, since it doesn't have any of its own audio controls, and there are no audio adjustments that I found in the video settings for the Samsung phone that I'm using. So the way that I'm going to combat that is I have my lav mic, and I'll switch between those two so that you can hear the difference between the VideoMicro on the phone and the lav mic, which I can control. So now we've switched to the lav mic, and I've got the lav mic running into the Zoom H1, which is in my pocket, and I've controlled the audio on that. So hopefully it sounds pretty good, and we're gonna switch now to the VideoMicro. All right, so that wraps it up for the outside stuff. Let's jump back on the computer and see what all this stuff sounds like, and I'll go over some of the audio tips and tricks that I have, and we'll look at everything from there. I'll see you back inside. All right, so we're back here in the studio, and I spent all last night going over the footage and putting all the review together and analyzing the audio and going back and forth. And initially, I can definitely say that I'm pretty happy with the results that I've been getting from the VideoMicro compared to my other audio sources, the VideoMic Pro and my lav mic. We're gonna jump into post here, and I'm gonna show you. But also I just wanted to reiterate the differences. You know, they all do sound pretty similar, and I think they all sound really well. And just by watching what you just watched, you may say, well, the VideoMicro sounds great, I'll just get it. Or the VideoMic Pro doesn't sound that great, or it sounds fantastic, or whatever. But again, like, let's talk about how far we can push all of the 3 different mics in post and how they respond to things like the adaptive noise reduction and some EQ, and most importantly, the audio gain boosting, because a lot of times I record things quieter than maybe I could get away with, and that's because I've learned from experience that I don't want any part of my audio to spike anywhere. And so if I have to boost audio a little bit better, that is to get it to a better point, then that's much better for me as an editor to deal with than a spike somewhere where it's just totally clipped. Because having a spike having a spike in your audio is the same as having your highlights blown out on your cameras. You can't fix it. There's nothing you can do. If it's spiked or clipped, it's done. So you can lower the volume on it in post, but it's still gonna you're still gonna hear that nasty clipping sound no matter how low the volume is. So I would rather shoot a little bit lower if I have to deal with those spikes. And so let's see how the mics respond to the audio gain boosting in Premiere. Okay, so let's take a look at this clip here. and this was the beginning of the video. And I actually had some issues with this because this was the first time that I plugged the mic in, and I forgot to adjust the on-camera audio, the levels. So this was way low. So let's find this in the browser here. Okay, so there is a bunch of hiss in this initially, and I think I did boost this. Actually, I boosted it by probably 12. This is what it was at. This is the original. So I just dropped it by negative 12 decibels in the audio gain to get it back to the original. This guy, the Rode VideoMicro. So if you can see right here, it's peaking around the negative 18. And just in case you don't know anything about audio, we record decibel levels when we're looking at the meters. We're looking at negative numbers, and the top being 0 here. And 0 is bad. 0 is where it hits the red, so we don't want that. And like I just mentioned, I like to record things a little bit low, so I like to keep things between negative 12 and negative 6, and that ensures that I won't have, if I do have any peaking, it'll still give me a little bit of room in here to play with. And if I need to boost things overall, like on this one being negative 18, so that's even lower. That's only around negative 24. So we're just gonna, if I'm around negative 24, then I know that I want it to be around negative 12, then I need to add 12 decibels to the audio gain. So I'm gonna go in here and right click and bring up audio gain and put in 12. So now you can see, let's bring this up a little bit. Now you can see here that everything is right. This looks like it might peak right here, so let's check. Some of its other uses, so I may be using it for a little more. So I'm going to go over... Nope, we're all good. So you can see that nothing is hitting the red there. I'm not peaking anywhere. But the downside is now you can hear the hiss really badly. For how it functions as a vlog. And like I mentioned earlier in the review, that hiss is a result of the Rode VideoMicro not having the capabilities to add the plus 20 decibels in the mic like the VideoMic Pro does. So that's another reason why people say, oh, well, that VideoMic Pro is $200 and something, but the Rode Micro sounds almost just as good. Why would I pay so much more? Well, that's one of the reasons why, so that you can have that latitude and the ability to really get the best possible audio out in post, especially if you screw something up on location like I do lots of times. Alright, so let's see how I'm going to get rid of that hiss. The first thing I'm going to do is... Some of its other uses, so I may be using it for... I'm going to add a high-pass filter. That's one thing else that I didn't mention that the VideoMic Pro has, is it has a high-pass filter switch on there. I don't know what it's set at, but basically if you don't know what a high-pass filter is, it means that it will let every frequency passed through the microphone that you select from a certain hertz. So basically we want to take out low rumbles from the computer or the HVAC or just low environmental noises. We can put a high pass filter on there. So we go to effects, audio effects, high pass. Now this is what it has on there. If you listen to it, that took away almost everything. That took away, because it's set to 1495 hertz. But I typically do about 150 hertz. Because if you start going above 200 hertz, really, especially depending on your voice, if you're a male specifically, then that's really going to start cutting into your natural frequencies, and your voice is going to start to sound funny. But 150 usually gets those real low rumbles out. I think then a lot of the other videos that I've been looking at. So there's not too much of a difference there. Luckily, the wind filter did a pretty good job of pulling out the low rumbles, and there wasn't too much low rumble in the studio. But out and about, I always, when I'm out here in this situation, I always put the high pass filter on. Even if it's not really too discernible, it's still going to help you just to make sure everything's even. Okay, so the next thing is, let's see how else we can get rid of that hiss, and let's go ahead and try the adaptive noise reduction. So I'm just going to leave it on auto real quick and see what that does. So I'm going to do a couple different things with this, I think, than a lot of the other videos that I've been looking at.
There it is. There's the
I
hiss.
bought this as a kind of a backup
and now the hiss is gone.
to go on one of
So
my
that did a
video
really good job.
And for
So real quick about the adaptive noise reduction, this is also available in Audition, in Adobe Audition, which is what I used to use for audio editing until they added it to Premiere. In Audition, it's still a little more powerful and it's still a little more controllable, but they did add these edits, and they have presets. So if you just, a lighter noise reduction preset is a pretty good preset to try out. But the most stuff that you're going to want to adjust here if it starts sounding too funny is reduce noise by, and you just wouldn't want to lower this that way so it doesn't reduce the noise as much, but it will reduce it a little bit. And the same thing, bring the noisiness down, bring the fine-tuned noise floor down just a little bit, and then that would give you a much more mild but still quite effective sound. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and re-add that. I just deleted what I just did and just re-add just to the normal one, because in the studio
audio and that sort of stuff. But I've been playing around with it, and I actually,
that sounds a lot better. The hiss is gone. So like I said, you can get rid of the hiss. It's not a big deal in most situations. Okay, so I'll show you one more way to do that. So I'm going to delete that, and I'm going to go into my parametric equalizer, and I'm going to open that up. So this is basically an EQ, just like we've had for decades now on mixers and stuff like that. So basically, here's all of our frequencies from low to high. Here's the hertz, and here's the master gain and the decibel levels. So what we want to do is I'm going to run through this, and I'm going to see if I can't pull that high pitch frequency, the hiss, out manually.
This guy, the Rode VideoMicro. So I'm going to do a couple different things with this, I think, than a lot of
Okay, so it's gone, but now you notice that it pulled a little too much out of here, and that's starting to affect my natural voice. So I'm going to bring up some of this high midtones a little bit more. Okay, so there you have it. I've adjusted the hiss, and I think I've got it out, and then because I adjusted for the hiss, I had to compensate by bringing some of these mids and the lows back up. Well, I wanted to bring the lows back up anyways because it just sounded a little flat, so I just gave it a little bit of bass to help fill out my voice a little bit more.
I'll go over that kind of stuff. It's going to be a little more in depth as to the range of
so there it is without it
that this guy has and doesn't have, because there are a few differences. I'm going to compare it with,
and now put it with the EQ on
right here. So this is the Rode VideoMic Pro,
and there's that hiss again by taking it off.
So we'll compare it with that, and we'll see how it does. I will probably also maybe throw
and you can go back in here and fine-tune this again.
But I'll be using a lav mic out and about. So I'm in the studio right now, but let's go out.
And there it is.
Okay, so I'm going to wrap up this review right now. Sorry I went over, sorry it was so lengthy, but I definitely wanted to be more informative rather than less informative, especially when it comes to dealing with microphones and audio and stuff like that. And the main point I'm trying to drive across here, other than the review, is that there is more to audio, just like video and photos. There is more to audio than just the microphone and how it sounds right out of the box. So I wanted to go over what you can do with it and all that kind of stuff. So I hope all that information helped you out to help you decide whether or not the mic is right for you, or any of the other things, any of the other types of microphones that I compared it to. And if you have any questions or comments about any of the settings that I have or that I used, or any of my post-production workflow, or anything that I missed in the review, make sure you leave that in the comments below, and I'll definitely answer them. Oh, and one more thing regarding the VideoMicro on the cell phone. I definitely was surprised, and I was very happy with what I was able to pull out of it and use, so I definitely will be using that more as like a backup vlogging, or anything with my cell phone. I did mention, however, that you can't control the audio through the native video mode, even in the Video Pro mode on my Note 8, But you could get, if you wanted to control the audio, you could get third-party programs, third-party apps like VideoMic Pro or the Cinema F5, I think it's called. Those are two of the better ones. But in my experience, those still, even though they're better and they let you control audio, both of their user interfaces are still pretty sloppy. They don't work with the newer phones very well. They don't support 4K very well. So they have a lot of issues, and I just still prefer my native Pro mode in my Note 8 and the S8 and the newer phones. So for now, I'm just going to deal with the auto levels that the phone gives me, knowing that the microphone is good enough to deal with, and if I have any more problems, I can jump in post and fix those up, and it sounds pretty good. Okay, I'm really done now. Everything that I talked about in the video, all of the microphones and the equipment that I used to make this video are all in the links in the description below, so you can check those out. And if you haven't already, definitely make sure you subscribe to my channel. You can get more content like this where I do reviews, tutorials, and adventure vlogs and travel videos. So thanks again, and I'll see you in the next video.